John figured it was best to keep the Dragon of Plunder's charts someplace safe, so he took them back to his room. He almost teleported back to the ship to return them, but his excitement to find something to trade more distracted him from the small task, and instead he left the charts in his closet and he went downstairs on his way to his bike. He stopped in front of the television, which was on, showing the hurricane update. A reporter held up a gold coin. John recognized the coin as a Spanish doubloon. What's he talking about? John thought. The TV was on mute. John started looking around for the remote control as his dad walked in the room. Did you get your bag all packed? John's dad said. No, John said. He had been planning to pack after he saw the storyteller. We fly out on the red-eye flight tomorrow. Your bag needs to be packed before dinner, his dad said. But John's attention was caught by the television. The reporter squatted next to a muddy treasure chest. He wiped the face of it, revealing the same treasure chest his parents had bought from the storyteller those years ago. John's jaw dropped open. He looked more frantically for the remote control. John, are you even listening to me? His dad asked. Of course he wasn't. His heart was pounding too hard in his chest. If he could just figure out where the reporter was, he'd be able to find the treasure chest in the present. If he could do that, he could find it in the past. Where could the remote be? John, I need you to pay attention right now. Yeah, Dad, I'm listening. John managed to mutter. The remote wasn't in the end table next to the couch, and it wasn't in the bookshelf. It wasn't on the coffee table. He just had to use the volume button on the TV itself. He crossed the room. John, sit down and listen for a moment, his dad said. John looked at his dad and then at the TV. The reporter had opened the chest and was showing a letter that was found inside. John desperately wanted to know what was on that letter. John took a step towards the TV. John, if you're not going to listen, I'm not going to be able to take you to the Caribbean, his dad said. John stopped. That stopped him in mid-step. It's the pirate treasure, John pointed to the TV. This is the kind of thing perfect for my essay. They've been running this segment every half an hour, someplace in the Bahamas. Look, John, more important than that, you need to make sure that you get to bed early. Some people like to sleep on the plane, but I'm not one of them. John plopped on the couch so his dad could continue the lecture. As he sat, he felt the remote control wedged between two couch cushions. He pulled it free, and he started to turn up the television. Look, tomorrow for the flight, we'll be eating breakfast before we leave, and... John's dad stepped over, grabbed the remote, pointed at the TV, and turned it off. I need to know what island that is, John yelled. John, this is disrespectful attitude. It isn't winning any points right now. If you're going to be traveling, you have to pay attention so you don't get lost. Or worse. Don't you understand? Yes. John sat and listened to his dad explain the details of the trip, while the entire time his insides were aching to turn the news back on and see where the reporter was reporting from. They always say their location at the end, John thought. He needed to be watching the report in time for that, but his dad kept talking, and John kept nodding like he was paying attention, but really, he wasn't. John watched the clock tick by. There's no way they're still doing that report, he thought. But if they ran the report every half hour, he could still go to the storyteller's house and be back in time for the next airing. Unless this was the last time they broadcasted. His dad turned to him. Okay, John, repeat it all back to me. Oh, what had his dad said? He suddenly wished he'd been paying attention. If his dad had to go through all that all over again, John wouldn't be able to get to the storyteller's house by dinner, breakfast. What time sounded right to John? Breakfast. The only thing he could remember was they were flying out at 6 a.m. They had to get at the airport an hour early, half hour on the max to get there. 4 a.m., John guessed. Max to PDX, connecting flight in. John tried to think of what major airports were close to the Caribbean. Houston, Dallas, Atlanta. We'll be in the Caribbean In time for dinner, John grinned. Good. His dad handed the remote control back. I've got some calls to make. Don't turn it up too loud, John. John quickly turned the TV back on and turned up the volume. The report about the treasure chest was over. No point in visiting the storyteller if it's the wrong island. John ran upstairs and got out his titanium book. He browsed the news station's webpage until he found the report from the television story. From there, a web search of the reporter brought him to the reporter's Twitter feed. His top story referenced the news report, pirate treasure unearthed on Moore's Island? The report had even included a location on the map, almost exactly where the Dragon of Plunder was shipwrecked. John pulled the charts out of his closet, and he marked an X where the treasure chest had been unearthed. Now he just needed something to trade it for. Chapter 26. You think me a fool? John quickly rode his bike to the storyteller's house. Then he pulled $10 out of his pocket, looked at it, and shoved it back in. He had earned that $10 clearing the blackberry buffs. Oh my gosh. He had earned it by clearing blackberry bushes. It was stuffed tight in his pocket now. He pedaled under the baking late summer heat. John wondered what he'd ask. To trade with more. Maybe a jar of eyeballs. No, too gross. Mummified frogs? Still gross. The peacock hat? Nah, what if the peacock hat was really alive? No. He had to think of something else. He only had $10 anyways. The hat looked like it cost a lot more than that. He walked his bike up to the porch and he pressed the doorbell. Digital gongs rang out. The storyteller answered the door. She wore a shimmering rainbow-colored wrap. Figured you were scared off for good, she said. The eye patch is magic, John said. John pulled the sharkskin eye patch from his pocket and dangled it. It teleports me through time. Oh, is it now? She said, her eyes rounded with a curious smile. I've been to the past. My mom is trapped there. John expected her to laugh in his face, and he prepared to put the eye patch on to show her the truth. No need for that, John. I've seen it before. John hesitated and then thrust the eye patch into his pocket. He reached into his other pocket and he pulled out $10. You sold us a treasure chest. My mom took it. She got in it and she went into the past. I need something to trade for it. I need something exotic, something that would impress a pirate. Well, I'm not really sure if he's a pirate, but he does have a big treasure hoard, and I know he has the chest. Please, come in, John. She stepped away from the door, holding it open for John. He walked in without any of the wonder or apprehension from his first visit. A few days on a pirate ship filled him with more confidence than he could have ever imagined possible. His time in the Caribbean did something else as well. It stripped away his easy amazement. Everything in the storyteller's house looked more ordinary than the last time he'd been there. He noticed the grandfather clocks were weathered and in poor repair. The bookshelves were all leaning and coming apart. And the pirate ship on the mantel had a broken mast. He looked closer at the pirate ship. A dragon for the masthead. Most of the paint had come off on the aft of the ship, but enough of the ship's name remained for him to make out at least one word. Plunder. Do you have something I could trade? John flourished out his $10 again to display it proudly. Something to trade, but it can't be it can't be from the future, he muttered out. It can't be technology, and it can't be anything that would change the past. What was once the most valuable thing in the world? The storyteller asked. Gold? John questioned. Only one of the wise men brought gold. The others, spice. What, you mean like cinnamon? John asked. All kinds of spice. The storyteller walked to her kitchen. John followed her. Hundreds of jars. There had to be something among there that would be valuable to a pirate in the Caribbean. John looked at the different jars. saffron, garlic, sea salt. The storyteller took out a stool so she could reach the top shelf of an upper cabinet. While she rummaged, she said, "The Dutch traded the island of the Manhattan to the English for nutmeg." The Dutch must have been the ones to trade plastic for it, John figured. "Is that what I should use, nutmeg?" The storyteller began taking small jars out of the cabinet, inspecting each of them before putting them back. "Where is the man from?" "He lives on an island in the Bahamas." "A native?" "I don't know." "Tell me about him." "He has a lot of stuff, and he offered us mint tea." John wasn't sure what details mattered. "Ah." She rummaged a final time in the cabinet and held out a jar of tiny black, white, and red balls. "This should do." "Pepper?" John guessed. "The world wasn't always as small as it is today," the storyteller said. "What do you think they were looking for when they found America?" She took out the jar of pepper. John rode his bike. Surprised, the storyteller didn't even charge him for the pepper. He left his bike against the house and he crossed the waist-high fence over to Alyssa's driveway. She was still in her garage, working on her robot, Robbie. "Hey," John said. "Hey, how's my favorite time-traveling pirate?" she said. She did a final twist with her wrench and she stood up to face John. "I'm doing pretty good." With her wrench, "I'm doing pretty good. Any updates on the pieces of pirate ship?" John started bouncing from foot to foot, like he always did when he was anxious, this time anxious to get back in time and be the one to save the day. "Not really, John. When my dad gets home from work, I'll ask him about it. I'm sure I'll be able to convince him to work on it, but it might be over the weekend," she shrugged. John winced. "The weekend? He'd be all the way in the Caribbean by then. He wouldn't be able to get the part until they returned back. There was no telling how long Blackbird and the rest would be stuck on Moore's Island. At least if I make a good trade," he thought. "Moore will probably be friendly with the crew." John thought, then squeezed the small pepper jar in his hand. "Well, Alyssa, I gotta go. I'm probably going to be out of town with my dad for a little while." He wasn't exactly sure how long this relief mission would be, but maybe he'd get back to his mom and not have to go. He waved bye to Alyssa and crossed their shared driveways back to the house. When he went back inside, his dad asked him as soon as he was there, "John, did you pack like I asked?" "I'm going to pack, Dad, right now." John ran upstairs and he pulled a suitcase from the closet. He dumped handfuls of clothes in it. Shirts, pants, shorts, socks, underwear. Then he had the suitcase full. He zipped it up. Good enough, he thought. He pulled on the eye patch. With Blackbird's salvage party gone, the beach was strangely quiet. John ran about yelling, "Mom! Mom! Mom!" until she emerged from the tree line. She was shaking water out of her wet hair. "Mom! Mom! I saw it! The treasure chest! On the news!"